Strangers by Taichi Yamada. Translated by Wayne Lammers. Chapter 11. In the cab on my way home, I marveled at my parents' sense of moderation. They said whatever they wanted, but never so much as insinuated they'd love to come see me once. It saddened me a little, and even weighed on my conscience, that I had taken advantage of their reserve and not offered an invitation. But perhaps we were just subtly acknowledging that there was a line separating illusion from reality and that it must not be breached. After a while, I remembered my son Shigeki. To say I remembered him no doubt makes me sound terribly aloof, but in fact, from around the time his mother and I started discussing divorce, my son had turned almost completely away from me. In a word, he had sided with his mother. He ignored me when I spoke to him, while continuing to speak with her as easily and familiarly as ever. I couldn't really fault him for this, since he knew he would have to live with her after the divorce. For that matter, if a boy of 19 could develop a greater closeness to his mother as a result of his antipathy toward his father, perhaps it was best for me to abandon all efforts to win his affection. If it meant he would be a better son to his mother, then let him hate me. In essence, I decided then that I would try to forget my son. By now, though, it seemed likely that Shigeki had learned of his mother's relationship with Mamiya. And if so, although perhaps college sophomores were old enough not to be prone to such emotional insecurities, I found myself wondering whether he might not be feeling the need for a father's love about now. After all, I'd taken to reveling in my own parents' love, and I could repay them by offering Shigeki the same. Sorry, but could you take me to Akasaka instead? I said to the driver. I gave him the name of a hotel. Staying in Akasaka would save me from having to lie to Kei at least for tonight. I would call Shigeki and ask him to come see me at the hotel tomorrow, perhaps for lunch. I would give him some extra spending money. I didn't feel very sure, though, how Shigeki would receive such an unexpected overture from his father. Imamura residence, my ex-wife's voice said on the other end of the line. She'd gone back to using her maiden name. Hi, it's me. She hesitated a moment. Shigeki? No, not Shigeki. Hideo. Goodness, she said, a strained smile coming into her voice. It sounded a little bit strange for Shigeki, but I wasn't expecting to hear from you, so. Right. It was my turn for a strained smile. This was the first time we'd spoken on the phone since the divorce. You two sound so much alike. It gives me the willies, she said. Sorry about that. I had braced myself for some nasty exchanges, but somehow we weren't having a tense conversation. He's not at home? He's in America. One of his friends is at a college in Arizona on a one-year exchange program. Shigeki's spending 3 weeks of his summer vacation at the host families. Arizona's awfully hot this time of year, isn't it? He's young. You wanted him out of the way, didn't you? What do you mean by that? Does he know? Does he know what? About you and Mamiya. It's still too early to tell him. You're seeing Mamiya, right? I'm under no obligation, you know. No obligation to what? To tell you anything. Well, maybe not, but would it hurt to pay a little common courtesy? Mamiya and I were colleagues for a long time, but now we can't work with each other anymore. Go right ahead. Your private lives needn't interfere. It's not that simple. Oh, is that so? Well, you were the one who wanted the divorce, so whatever happens between me and Mr. Mamiya, you have no right to be jealous. I'm not jealous. Then you shouldn't be making such a big deal about it. Maybe not, but I bet Mamiya finds it awkward, too. He said as much to me, but it's not as if he's committing adultery. I don't see why he has to feel so awkward about it when we've already divorced. But you were already seeing him before we split up, right? How can you even imagine such a thing? It all happened way too fast otherwise. You were in his arms barely a month after the divorce. You're disgusting. I'd been in the cold with you an awfully long time before the divorce came through. Someone could have whispered sweet nothings in my ear the very next day, and I'd have fallen into his arms in an instant. Do you intend to marry him? I told you, that's none of your business. Shigeki is my son, too. I have a right to be concerned about what effect it might have on him. Why should you be so concerned about that boy all of a sudden? You never paid him the least bit of attention before. I called because I wanted to see him. You really are disgusting. I'm sorry, but I have to hang up. Talking to you just makes me sick. The line went dead with a click. If you really find me so disgusting, then how about showing a little more gratitude at being rid of me? How about giving back a little of that dough you squeezed out of me? Had she not already hung up the phone, I might well have gone on to make some such remark. She was right. I was disgusting. I couldn't help myself. My peevish side came shooting right to the surface like that every time I spoke with her. And she held up her end in kind. Somewhere along the line, that had become the inevitable pattern. I had a single on the hotel's 9th floor. From my window, I could see the lights in the windows of another high-rise hotel and the flow of cars snaking up and down Oyama Boulevard. It wasn't Shigeki's fault that I would be unable to see him. But as I gazed at the uninterrupted streams of white headlights and red taillights, I reflected on how familiar I had become with disappointment in my relationship with the boy. From around the time he entered junior high, he seemed bent on disappointing me at every turn. This perception of mine probably owed as much to my own misguided expectations as to anything else, so in most cases I could not actually place the blame on him. Nevertheless, even though I knew that a young person's sense of self did not necessarily develop along the lines a parent might wish, it provoked my wrath when he ignored my feelings or talked back to me over some trivial issue. But losing my temper with him proved fruitless, for it succeeded only in exhausting me, not in producing the desired change in his behavior. Around the time Shigeki entered high school, I finally learned to accept the inevitable and shrug it off. After that, in undertaking any exchange with him, I always prepared myself for mild disappointment. It got to a point where if I asked him whether he'd like to have some coffee with me, and he responded with a good-natured, "Sure, Dad," as he did on occasion, I actually felt thwarted. The fault lay with me, of course. For my failure both as a father and as a husband, the fault lay entirely with me. Not that I truly believed that, but I found a small measure of satisfaction in painting myself black as I continued to gaze at the city lights from my hotel window. The next morning, I checked out a little after 10. As I started across the lobby toward the entrance after paying my bill at the front desk, I caught sight of Mamiya coming into the hotel. Knowing it would look odd if I suddenly veered off in a different direction, but at a loss for anything else to do, I simply halted and watched him stride in through the automatic doors. Perhaps he would not notice me, and if so, it would be just as well. Once inside, Namiya glanced about the lobby for a moment before turning toward the coffee shop. Then suddenly he stiffened and jerked his head back around to look directly at me. Flashing a smile, I bobbed my head in greeting. It felt good to see him. Ayako's right, I thought. Surely there's no reason our private lives have to affect our working relationship. Hi, he said, barely opening his mouth and sounding very tentative. He stood motionless, still looking over his shoulder, staring at me with the eyes of someone who sees an apparition. Aren't you overdoing it a bit? I felt like saying as I walked toward him, but he quickly broke into a smile to dispel his surprise. Well, he said. What's up so early in the morning? I asked. 10 was an early hour for people who worked in television. I'm supposed to meet someone, he said, glancing in the direction of the coffee shop. A man waved, and I recognized him as one of my fellow writers, a man several years my senior who was a much hotter property than myself at the moment. Namiya raised a hand in response, and I offered a small bow as well. After gesturing to us that we should take our time, the man settled back into his seat. But I had nothing to say to Namiya. Had it not been a freak encounter, I would no doubt have quickly found my tongue. I had to be circumspect about suggesting that we might try working together again. I could hardly believe my eyes when I recognized you a minute ago, he said. What do you mean? Even I have occasion to stay at a hotel now and then. No, I mean because of how much you've changed. And in such a short time. Changed. It wasn't all that long ago that I visited you at your place. You look like you've lost an awful lot of weight since then. You think so? Sorry if it's none of my business. It was just such a shock. I look like skin and bones? Well, I don't know if I'd go that far, but what happened? I suppose I might have pushed myself a little too hard. You need to be more careful. I guess now that I'm all alone, I don't know when to stop. Have you seen a doctor? No, since it's not as if I'm in any kind of pain. And since I don't appear the least bit changed to myself when I look in the mirror, I appended inwardly. I think you should. Don't you go trying to scare me now. No, really, I'm serious. You need to see a doctor. Forgive me, but losing so much weight so quickly definitely isn't normal. I suppose you're right. I will. So long, I said with a wave and started for the door. Where are you off to now? Home. Namiya looked like he had something more to say, but I put him behind me and proceeded out the door. The encounter confirmed what I had secretly suspected. The time spent with my parents last night had apparently made me even more emaciated in the eyes of those around me. I walked toward the taxi stand. Perhaps I was destined to go on wasting away, never able to see the ravages with my own eyes, until suddenly one day I dropped dead. So be it then. One who's been given the chance to spend time with his departed parents must not ask for much more. As usual, every last window in my building remained stoically closed against the engine roar and exhaust fumes rising from the vehicles plying Route 8. Kay's window looked no different from any other. The glare of the late morning sunshine reflecting off it made it impossible to tell whether anyone was within. Turning my key in the security panel, I pushed open the thick plate glass door and went inside. A tall young man was standing guard next to 7 or 8 brand new cardboard boxes stacked neatly against one wall. I eyed him as I walked by, but he maintained his glassy-eyed stare and offered no response. Stepping into the open elevator, I pressed the button for my floor. As the doors began to slide shut, I glanced toward the young man again and, to my surprise, found him staring at me with an odd look in his eyes. Though he averted his gaze as soon as our eyes met, I instantly recognized the look of curiosity. No doubt I had grown so withered in appearance as to attract most anyone's attention. Why could I still not see it? Was it some kind of trickery exercised by my parents? The elevator stopped sooner than I expected, too soon for the 7th floor. I raised my eyes and saw the number 3 lit up over the door. Kay's floor. The doors opened. There she stood. "Oh," I said in surprise. "Did you have the day off?" She stood looking at me without a word. A sleeveless white dress flowed long like a negligee over her figure, reaching down to her ankles. Since she didn't immediately step into the elevator, I pressed the open button and smiled. Well, a look of pity crept across a stricken face, as if what she saw truly broke her heart. "Where have you been?" she asked, still not moving. "I checked into a hotel to do some work. I needed a change of scenery." "You're lying," she said, her voice low but firm. She kept her eyes locked on mine as she stepped into the elevator, approaching so close that I actually expected her to kiss me. "You're lying," she hissed again. I caught the smell of sweet perfume. The doors closed behind her. "This must be a first," I said gently as I returned her gaze. I pulled her to me but felt her stiffen under my touch. "The first time I've smelled perfume on you." I was watching from the window. "I waited all night. You finally came home now." She said it very deliberately, almost as if she were reading the words out of a book. I sensed a note of anger. "Are you playing hooky from work?" Before she could answer, the doors slid open. She led the way down the 7th floor hallway. I dug into my pocket for the key. When Kay reached my door, she stepped to one side and stood tall and erect, watching my every move. I unlocked the door. "Let me go in first," I said. "I'll open the curtains and turn on the air conditioner. The heat just won't let up, will it?" The way Kay had been glaring at me confirmed that my emaciation had indeed advanced, but I had no reason to behave feebly in accordance. I spoke with exaggerated cheer in my voice as I hurried to turn on the air conditioner and open the curtains. The steel door swung shut with a heavy, metallic sound. "It's almost time for lunch, Kay. Shall we have some cold noodles?" I bought a whole case of instant noodle packs the other day, and we also have the ham and cucumbers and eggs. As I stood on a chair to adjust the slats on the air conditioner, Kay slid up to me and wrapped her arms around my waist. "Why did you have to go? Why did you have to break your promise?" she said. I considered my response, uncertain what to say, but I knew it would do me no good to lie. I wanted to tell them goodbye. I didn't want it to end, with me just suddenly not showing up anymore. "And you did? You said your goodbyes." I smiled awkwardly, still standing on the chair. "Let go, will you?" "I want to get down." But she would not let go. "Answer me," she insisted. "Tell me you said your goodbyes. You're starting to sound like my mother. Stop being evasive." "Did you tell them you couldn't come anymore?" "I couldn't." I had a feeling. They haven't done a thing, I pleaded. They haven't done anything to deserve that kind of news from their son. Kay released her hold. Get down, she ordered. I simply couldn't bring myself to say it. I stepped down from the chair. Come with me, she beckoned, her eyes burning into mine. Where? Impatiently, she clutched my right arm as if pulling on a rope and began dragging me toward the bathroom. She opened the door and flicked the switch. We stood side by side in front of the mirror as we had done once before. Can you see? Of course I can see. And how do you look? The reflection in the mirror showed my usual, ruddy complexion. I look strong. My color is good. No. Kay flung her arms tightly around my neck. Somebody help this man. Please, oh please, oh please. Kay probably wasn't religious, but she was begging someone, and it wasn't me. She was imploring for some force to save me. The obvious sincerity of her appeal left me at an utter loss for words. I marveled at the discovery that there were people in this world who could pray so fervently for the welfare of another. Please, Kay continued to beseech at my ear. Please, oh please help. She was weeping. Kay was praying in tears. I felt a surge of love and squeezed her tightly. Thank you, I said. Kay merely continued her entreaties. Please help, she said. Please help this man. Please. She clung to my neck as if for dear life. All at once a staggering sense of fatigue came over me. Kay weighed heavy on my shoulders. I could scarcely stay on my feet. Sorry, I said as my legs wavered under her weight. I feel incredibly weak all of a sudden. My legs gave way under me, and I could no longer hold her. I sank to the floor in a heap, gasping for breath. Are you all right? She crouched down beside me. I don't know. For some reason, I feel utterly drained all of a sudden. You've got to look in the mirror. What could she be talking about? Merely lifting my head required superhuman effort. Please. I think now you might be able to see. You have to look in the mirror. See what? I can't even keep my eyes open. All I want is to lie down. You have to look in the mirror. She got to her feet and started pulling on my arm. I can't. Please. You have to. I managed to lift my head, and Kay struggled to raise me off the floor to the level of the mirror. Wedging a hand under my right arm, she wrapped herself around me and strained with all her might. She finally lifted me just high enough, and I peered into the mirror through the haze of my debilitating fatigue. I saw an old man. My heart skipped a beat. It was me. The man with eyes sunk deep in their sockets, cheeks cavernously hollow, and skin as colorless as a pale white ghost, was me. I screamed, ah, but the sound that emerged was only a feeble one, scarcely more than a sigh. I dragged myself on my hands and knees from the bathroom to the living room and rolled over onto the floor. The effort drained me of every last reserve of strength I had. Kay came to lie beside me like a mother protecting her child. I closed my eyes and rested as tiny tremors shook my body. Terror gnawed at my stomach. Gone was my erstwhile bravado of being prepared to die for my parents. I chanted desperately in my heart, Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Oh, bless Buddha. Oh, bless Buddha. Oh, bless Buddha.